And Clem was looking really good. I was not a close series at all. So yeah, a bit of a rematch. Maybe Australia can get a little bit of revenge as we are jumping into our next series. Already spawning in the top right hand corner of Altitude, we have the Canadian Protoss player representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom left hand corner of Altitude, we have his opponent. We have the American Zerg player, currently teamless, but he just brought down Eric. It is Yoyo. Catching up in the chat. Wasn't Yoyo random before? Maybe before, but the last time we casted him, he was, I believe Zerg is his main race, so. Oh. Likewise, once again, Yoyo does roll his main, does end up as Zerg here, and I'm curious to see what he can bring to the table against Trigger as well. He's going to be going for a hatch gas pool, going to be going for his, of course, unnatural natural over at the third base location. And this is a really peculiar map. They did conduct their vetoes, and for Altitude to make it through as game one is quite shocking, to be honest. Yeah, I wonder what our plan is here for both of our players. I do think that Altitude, I think that Trigger is pretty comfortable in Altitude. On this map, you can comfortably get up to 3 bases and even 4 bases. You can wall off, and you can go for a more longer macro game as well, and really get into a comfortable quote-unquote death ball of Protoss, you know, 2 to 4 Colossi before we move out across the map. We've been seeing a lot of that recently on Altitude. Meanwhile, Yoyo, I feel like the pressure is going to be on him here on Altitude to try and stop that from happening, to try and pull apart his opponent. Again, I'm really not familiar with his play against Protoss. I don't really know if he's hyper aggressive, if he goes for longer macro games. I'm curious. Or if he thrives in the mid game, you know, he goes for like a 66 drone, road traveling all in. Show me. For the time being, Trigger is just being as annoying as possible, delaying that third hatchery for a couple of seconds. Back at home, Stargate opener. Again, I expect to be seeing Oracle into third base here from Trigger. Into eventually a 4th base as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes maybe 2 Gateway, Twilight Council into a Robo, into double Robo production. We'll see. I want to say Trigger did that recently against Scarlet. I want to say that's the case. As the Adept gets into the third. Doesn't get any drone kills though. Nice reactions from Yoyo. There is that first Oracle being chronoed out. Soon to be sent out on the map, and yeah, things are going to be settling down at least a little bit here. Oh! This is the danger of the unnatural natural, is that if you're misstepping a little bit, then you can rally your workers across, and these adepts can be a little bit annoying, catching the transferring workers. Thankfully, we don't lose anything. We're able to react in time. And that Oracle is zooming across the map. The Adept is getting into position, and the third base is about to be taken. Yoyo should be scouting this here with his Lings, but can't really do too much to deny it. As the Oracle dips in towards that third base, but no, the Queens are in position. Yoyo will not allow that Oracle to do too much damage. And the Spore is going to be able to finish up just in time as well. Nice reaction once again out of Yoyo to be able to keep his drones alive. To save them, not so much to put them back into mining, but regardless, really impressive stuff. Yoyo a little bit distracted by the Oracle, and I imagine soon we'll be sending these guys back to work. Good. Oh, as we're going to be abusing this third base a little bit here. The Spore is delayed. It's not quite done. There we go. The drones are going back to mining. Because of that, Trigger does come out ahead. He didn't kill a lot of workers, but that was like 30 seconds of 6 drones not mining, like that was pretty brutal overall. And thankfully Yoyo is able to get back into mining, but that was quite a significant amount of damage done. And now Trigger is up to 3 of these oracles. He's going into the main base. He has enough DPS to focus on one of the queens. Oh, and the queen will go down. This is the power of triple oracle. You do need multiple queens here in position. Without them, then the oracles will just overwhelm. Meanwhile, we are actually going for a gateway explosion. We're going to, oh my god, we're going into +1, but we're going into +1 armor, not +1 attack. Very interesting. Okay. I'm curious as to what the logic is behind this. Because I know that if we're getting +1 attack, then we can kind of DPS down Roach Ravager a little bit faster. Like we can have more pushing power. But maybe Trigger, he's more concerned with keeping his Stalkers alive, and he's confident in his micro in a more elongated fight. Let's here we go. The Stalkers are going to be moving out. The Oracles throwing down their Revelations as well, just cleaning up all this creep, setting up the stage traps as well. And this is getting a little bit out of hand already. 3 drones go down. The queens are looking exposed. We can't reinforce this too easily, but these Stalkers still pose a massive threat, and they're pretty safe just because there's no creep. Meanwhile, Yoyo just focusing on his Roach Ling army. Oh, another queen goes down. A queen, a Roach. The Roaches here of Yoyo trying to dive on forward here, but there are stasis traps. We can't really chase. Behind this Yoyo does get eyes on the 4th base. Oh, stasis trap goes off as well. Does trigger on those roaches. And Yoyo just has to trade as best he can. Force these blinks out. Again, can't really chase this. As a result, I'm afraid to look, but yeah, Trigger has only lost 2 of his Stalkers so far. We set up a surround as well, but no, the stasis trap goes off. The surround doesn't quite come into play. Trigger is safe and sound. Gonna be punished a little bit, but no, the oracles are there to chase away those lings. Behind this, we have our second forge on the way. We've got +1, so we can get into 1-1. Yoyo going for the surround, and this time he's gonna be able to catch a decent chunk of these Stalkers. When I say decent chunk, I mean 3 Stalkers. But yeah, the economy for Trigger is just getting a little bit out of hand at this point. Yoyo was able to get another base up and running. He is going for a Link counterattack as well. This is honestly pretty important. Like, he has to relieve some of this pressure. He has to do something across the map. He gets a pylon, which helps. Oh no, but the queens, no! The queens are on A move, and 2 queens do go down as well. Still no creep. And Trigger, he can just kind of have his way with this position. He can just keep attacking, keep blinking, keep trading. At the same time, Zelrambe here on the left-hand side. Thankfully, we have slowed off some links and some roaches, but it looks like the Zelts are overpowering the army of Yoyo, and Trigger has gotten out of control. GG gets called. Trigger takes game number 1. GG, just that position from Trigger. We've seen it before. We saw a little bit of it last night as well, where if there is enough creep spread, and if you do set up those stasis fields, you can just end the game. You can just perpetually trade and not get surrounded or avoid those surrounds, and yeah, just snowball essentially, and which is what we saw from Trigger. Yoyo just didn't have the free supply to counterattack across the map in time. Unfortunately, he was lacking that creep spread as well to be able to really solidify his defenses at his 3rd. So it didn't take too much for Trigger to assert himself. I think he killed 2 tumors. He got 2 creep tumors and then he was just there at that ramp. He had assumed the position. And here we go. We're going to be getting into game number 2, and spawning in the top left-hand corner of Babylon, we have the Canadian Protoss player representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Babylon, we have his opponent. We have the American Zerg representing himself. It is Yoyo. Vámonos. So a really strong showing out of Trigger. Nothing too crazy. Nothing too out of the norm. Just going for +1 armor instead, which did help with his overall trades with his Stalkers, just because he had, again, he was focusing on more keeping them alive and that consistent damage that would overwhelm and overpower. Not so much like looking to kill at that point. It was a slow death. Slow death for Yoyo. Oh. But I imagine Trigger is going to be changing up his build here in game number 2. Likewise, I imagine so is Yoyo, as he's forced to take the unnatural natural. You love to see it. And so, yeah, unfortunately, I was talking earlier about how I haven't really seen too much of Yoyo's, like, ZVP period, and I was really curious to see what he, like, if he has a more aggressive style or if he tries to go into a more macro-oriented style. I didn't get to see any of it. That last game was more Yoyo struggling to survive more than anything, and we really didn't get to see him spread his wings and get into his own game. Hopefully that changes here. Hopefully we get a more back and forth. We'll see. The one thing that we did bear witness to was that I was really impressed with Yoyo's defense. Whether it was against Adepts or Oracles, Yoyo, he had really good reactions against that sort of stuff, to be able to minimize his losses and keep his drones alive. Maybe not so much when it came to going back to mining, of course, but regardless, it was really cool to see. And hopefully he can keep it up. As interesting, Trigger is going to be going for a Stalker first, not an Adept first. And this does typically lead to Twilight Council openers. We see not a delay on the Warp Gate either, and Yoyo should have recognized that, as we do have a Twilight Council opener. Trigger is going to be looking to be aggressive here on Babylon. Stalker is going to be shooing this Overlord away, and again, this is already a tell. Slowlings of Yoyo are going to be able to dip on past that Stalker, and we should get a full scout of the main. Okay, so nicely done here by Yoyo. Is aware of the opener. Is aware of what Trigger is up to. Oh, and I assumed it was going to be Glaives, but no, it's going to be a Blink opener. Okay. This is something we don't see too often. This is not popular at all. For good reason. We've kind of spoken about this before, but yeah, Trigger is going to be going 2-base Blink. This is really old school. I'm curious if he's going to commit to the 2-base play or if he's going to try and take a third. But this should be a 2-base all-in. We'll see, we'll see. We'll see how many gateways get thrown down as Yoyo has his Lings on patrol. Again, he's trying to figure out what exactly is going on. And back at home, he's droning, he's saturating his bases, droning up to around 40. We've hit the 4-minute mark, and there we go. Roach Warren is thrown down on time. Ooh, and we don't just get a Roach Warren, we're going straight into the lair as well. With this lair, we're going to have access to... This is a little bit greedy. With this lair, we're going to have access to really fast Overseers, so detection, which is going to be good for scouting, but also good against DTs if it was a DT opener. But that's kind of it, you know? Like, this is a pretty big investment this early on, especially when potentially we're going up against a 2-base all-in that doesn't require an Overseer. Speaking of, 2 gates in the main, 6 in the natural. We have a 2-base, 6-gate Blink Stalker all in. Very committed coming out from Trigger. This is going to hit like a truck, and Yoyo doesn't really know what he's up against. Roaches are good, but we're also going to need Lings as well to help support them. A pure Roach is not going to be enough. Roaches are coming out, and again, they're going to be amazing against Adepts. But the Stalkers are about to arrive, and we're going to be seeing Trigger's Blink Stalker Micro being put on full display once again. There we go, the Stalkers will show up. Roaches are coming out in time. One of them already going to be going down. Oh my god. Trigger just barely keeping all those Stalkers alive. The Blink Micro is actually pretty damn good. Hasn't lost anything yet. As the Observer shows up as well, so we can start cleaning up some of this creep. Lings that do show up to help support these Roaches. But again, we haven't lost a single unit. Not yet. Up. Oh my god. It's actually insane. The Lings are getting picked off one after another. The Roaches are finally getting on top of some of these Stalkers. But again, we still haven't killed anything. And we've been bleeding out a lot of Lings and a lot of Roaches. Finally, one Stalker goes down. And is this the beginning of the end? A second Stalker. But overall, I do think the Blinks have been too damn good. Killing two Stalkers is not going to be enough as Trigger breaks on through. The Lings have fallen, the Roaches have fallen as well. GG gets called, and Trigger takes game number 2, takes the 2-0 win here and moves on to the next round. GG. GG, well played. Two base all in was quite real. And I think at the end of that game, I think Trigger lost 3 Stalkers. I want to say 3, maybe 4, maybe 4. And this is what I was talking about before. Yoyo going for that lair was very greedy. The lair didn't come into play at all. It was wasted resources, and those were resources that could have been spent on more Roaches. You could also see that spores were made as well, so Yoyo wasn't too sure if it was going to be DTs or not. So Yoyo was kind of getting ready for a multitude of things. Whereas the reality is, especially against these kind of these 2-base all-ins, these Twilight Council openers, specific reactions are required here. You need to be able to figure out what exactly it is to be able to respond correctly. Otherwise, you're spending resources in places where you shouldn't be, and it's just going to be setting you further behind. It's just going to be making that defense that much more difficult as... oh boy. Trigger moves on to the quarterfinals. GG. GG, well played. We're getting a couple of other updates right now. It looks like Solar is currently facing Pig in the round of 16. Winner goes up against Disc. Oh, as Disc took down Strange 2-0. Oh my god. Very impressive stuff here by Disc. Gonna be waiting for Solar or Pig in the next round.